It's our last day in Vegas and our flight leaves in 5 hours, but that's just enough time to squeeze in one last session at the Bellagio. Rampage is asleep in his cradle, sorry, I mean his bed, and we hop right into the 1-3 game for $300. First hand to note, we look down at ace-5 of diamonds from the big blind. We have 300 in our stack, there's 3 limps to me, I raise it up to 18, and we get 3 callers. 4 ways to the flop with 72 in the pot comes 4 diamonds, 10 of diamonds, 3 of clubs. We flop the absolute world with a nut flush draw and a gutter to the wheel. The small blind checks, I bet $32 looking to build a pot, and everybody folds. 325 now in our stack, we look down at jiggities from the small blind, the cutoff raises to 15. Button calls and I 3-bet now to $65, and surprisingly both of them call, so we're going 3 ways to the flop. 198 in the pot comes 9 of diamonds, deuce of clubs, 3 of spades. Our hand is still looking good with 3 undercards, so I bet $75 and the cutoff now goes all in for 115. The button gets out of the way and folds. Not sure exactly what the cutoff has here, but a no-brainer for us here with $40 more to call. So that's what I do, I call. The turn comes a 7 of spades, the river, the deuce of hearts, so a fairly clean run out for us. The cutoff flips over pocket 10s, we table our jacks and scoop that pot. The button later said that he had pocket 7s and would have turned a set. Sucks to suck. You know what doesn't suck though is the watermelon juice here at the Bellagio. We throw a few back and we're ready to go. 590 in our stack, we look down at queen jack offsuit from the under the gun position. I raise to 12. Small blind and the big blind both call, so we're going 3 ways to the flop here, which comes ace, 6, 8. Not a bad board for our range, but given that we're up against 2 other opponents, when the action checks to me, I decide to check behind. The turn comes the deuce of hearts, which is a pretty blank of a card, and the action checks to me again here, so I decide to take a stab with queen high. We're looking to fold out a few better hands such as king high or middle pair. That's what I do, I bet $15, but interestingly, both opponents make the call. 3 ways still to the river here comes the king of hearts. The action checks to me again, and I decide just to check it back. The small blind shows ace queen, and that's going to win, that's going to take it down, and we're off to the next hand. $550 in our stack, we look down at ace queen offsuit from the big blind, under the gun plus 1 limps. Middle position makes a weird min raise to $6. The cutoff, button, and the small blind all call, and that price is way too low for us, and there's way too many players in this pot for our liking, so I pop it up to $38. Under the gun plus 1 goes all in for less, and strangely, the middle position, button, and the small blind all call, so we're going 5 ways to the flop with 1 person all in. Flop comes 10, 9, 8. We have 2 overs and a gutter to a straight, decide to check, and the action checks over to the button. The button bets $75, and we all find a fold. Once we get called in 4 spots there pre-flop, we're not loving the situation, and the 10-9-8 flop crushes the opponent's ranges. I think it's best just to check fold there, in my opinion. 540 now in our stack, we look down at the hijack at 10-9 of clubs, 2 limps to me. I raise it up to $18 and just the cutoff calls, so we're going heads up to the flop, which comes ace, 5, 10. Good flop for our range, so I bet $20 and the cutoff calls. The turn comes the 4 of spades, which completes the rainbow. I decide to check here, looking to see what the cutoff does, and he plays a passive line and checks behind. The river is the 4 of diamonds, and the action checks around again, surprisingly. He shows ace queen, which is way good in this situation, and he's going to scoop that pot. Probably the hand of the session here, we look down at 5-7 of diamonds from the small blind. There's 1 limp, the cutoff raises to $15, and the button flat calls. I make the call as well here, which is definitely not a standard play, but we're going 3 ways to the flop with 52 in the pot. Flop comes 6 of hearts, 7 of spades, 8 of spades. We flop the bottom end of the straight draw and middle pair and decide to check. cutoff gives up the betting lead and checks, and now the button picks up and bets $45. This is an interesting spot, but decided to put in the call. I think there's some merit to raising, but the button's range should be pretty strong when calling 15 pre and then betting pot into 2 other opponents, and surprisingly the cutoff calls as well, so we're still 3 ways to the turn with 187 in the pot. Comes the 4 of hearts. This is an absolute gin card for us here. We now have the essential nuts. Seeing as though no one in their right mind would have 5-9 here, I decided to make sure that I get value here and I lead for $107. I think it could be fine to check in flow and go for the check raise. The only problem with that is that the button will be checking behind a lot here on the turn when the 4-liner comes out, so I think a lead, although very strong looking, is a decent play. Regardless, there's no shortage of action here at the Bellagio. The cutoff and the button both call, so we're off to the river, still 3 ways. 508 in the pot, the river comes to 10 of clubs. Not the best card as it changes the dynamic of the board. Now any 9 will have us beat, so I decide to check. The cutoff checks, and surprisingly the button checks as well. I show the straight, the cutoff shows ace-10 for a pair of 10s, and the button folds. So we're going to drag that $508 pot, and later the button says that he had 7-4 for 2 pair. Feel free to roast me in the comments. And after you're done roasting me in the comments, if you could scroll back up and renovate the like button into a nice shade of blue, that would really freshen up the place. 875 in our stack, we look down at King Jack offsuit from the big blind, few limps to me. I raise it up to 20 and the under the gun +1 limper and the button call, so we're going 3 ways to the flop with 70 in the pot. Giving us top pair, it comes King 10-7, 2 clubs. We flop top pair and life is good. I bet $20. Under the gun +1 folds, but the button calls, so we're going heads up to the turn, which is another king. It's the king of diamonds this time. This is a card that shouldn't change too much as we are either way ahead or way behind on the flop. And I'm going to keep going for value here. I bet $45. And now the opponent goes into his bag of tricks and decides to raise us to $145. Not exactly sure what he's repping here other than the last king in the deck, but nothing to do here other than call in our spot, so that's what I do. River with 400 in the pot comes the 4 of diamonds. As big a blank as I've ever seen. I check and flow to the button, and he's not done piling in chips here. He bets $300. So let's think about what we're losing to here. We lose to ace king, king queen, pocket 10s, and pocket 7s, along with the random king x combos. But I decide that I've seen this opponent make enough funky plays prior to this hand, so I make the call, and he flips over king 4 offsuit for a rivered boat. Let me just repeat that real quick. He called $20 pre with king 4, and then proceeded to raise me on the turn, absolutely crushed, but then miraculously gets bailed out there on the river and drags that $1,000 pot. And they say poker is dead. $400 in our stack, we look down at pocket jiggities from the under the gun position. I raise to 13. Cutoff min raises to $23 and it folds back around to me, and I decided to put the opponent all in for $90 more. He makes a fold and said that he had a lower pair. 430 in our stack, we look down at pocket quiggities now from the low jack. 2 limps to me, I raise it to 18. The button, who doesn't play too many hands, puts in the call. The small blind, under the gun, and the under the gun +1 all call as well, so we're going 5 ways to the flop here with 91 in the pot, which comes 5-7 deuce. When it checks to me, I bet $40 here, and now the button takes a weird line and raises me to 100. Everybody else folds, and we obviously don't love this spot since there's so many turn cards that we're unsure how to proceed on. Nevertheless, I call this bet and we're off to the turn. 291 in the pot, the turn comes a 4 of hearts, which is definitely one of those cards that we don't know how to proceed on. Ace 3, 3, 6, 6, 8 all make a straight, and now it also brings in some 2 pair combos. I make a very easy check here, intending on folding if he bombs the turn, but surprisingly he checks back. Alright, we're off to the river, which comes the 10 of diamonds. Gets even worse now as all diamond draws he was raising the flop and checking the turn with now get there. I check again, looking to check call or check fold depending on his bet sizing and his demeanor, but somehow, someway, he checks it back again. I sheepishly show my ladies, and we're good somehow. We scoop that $291 pot. We got out of the game for $588, so a profit of $288, and we're off to the airport. Alright, that does it for our session at the Bellagio, and it was the last session of this Vegas trip, so the next videos will probably be from California. I hope you guys like this video a lot. We got into the game for 300. We should have been up like 1,200, but that stupid 4 on the river, that 6% chance of hitting that hand screwed us. No worries though, we still booked a win, 288 profit. We got out for 588, so that's definitely good for us. Ending the trip with a W. Could have been a bang, but we made a splash. That's okay. We're here at McCarran Airport here in Vegas. Gonna jump on my American Airlines flight right now, but thanks for all the support, you guys. Drop a like if you watched it this far, comment down below, subscribe if you're new, and I'll check you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching to the end of my video. Click my head below to subscribe and stay in the loop. See you next time.